These days, it's getting harder and harder to tell what's real and what's fake. Artificial intelligence makes it possible for a computer to write prose. Software is so sophisticated that you can put anyone's head on someone else's body. If you feel like you can't trust your eyes anymore, I've got bad news for you. This whole time, we've been switching back and forth between the real me and a mannequin dressed in my clothes with a printout of my face taped on it. You couldn't tell, could you? Well, today the real me is going to take you on a journey into the world's most popular flavor, where the difference between real and fake is massive, but also subtle. Vanilla beans are grown commercially in locations around the globe. Mexico, Madagascar, which produces some 80% of world production, Indonesia, Tahiti, and Uganda, to just name a few. In all honesty, the growing and harvesting of vanilla beans has a lot working against it. The first challenge is that they come from the vanilla orchid. Have you ever been gifted one of those beautiful orchids, like in a glass terrarium flower pot thing, and then killed it in like under a week? Okay, so it's not quite like that. The vanilla orchid is native to Mexico and it does grow well in similar subtropical climates. But there's the very important issue of pollination. If an orchid flower isn't pollinated, it will not grow vanilla beans. And pollination is no simple feat. Outside of Mexico, vanilla orchids must be hand pollinated, and the practice is used commercially in Mexico as well. The hand pollinating technique still used today was invented by a horticulturist named Edmund Albius. Born into slavery in Reunion, a small island in the Indian Ocean, Albius perfected a simple technique using a thin stick and thumb to smear pollen from the male anther to the female stigma. His method allowed for vanilla production to go commercial. The technique works really well, but it's still incredibly labor intensive. It takes 600 hand-pollinated blossoms to produce 1 kilogram of cured beans. And then don't forget about the hand picking, after which we go into processing. That includes 4 basic steps: killing, sweating, drying, and conditioning, which oddly enough is also my morning hair routine. First up, killing, which is not a thing that I say very often anymore. This step can take a number of different forms, from heating in an oven to a dip in hot water, but the goals are the same: to stop the bean's growth, kill yeast and bacteria, and to start enzymatic reactions which will fuel aroma and flavor development. At this stage, glucovanillin starts to be converted to vanillin, which is the primary flavor compound vanilla heads everywhere go crazy for. Next is sweating. Now this is pretty much what it sounds like. The freshly killed beans are held at a real sweaty temperature between roughly 100 and 150 degrees. The enzymes responsible for converting glucovanillin to vanillin, like all enzymes, work faster as the temperature rises, up until the point that they are deactivated by too much heat. So the goal here is to keep them in that sweet spot to encourage max enzymatic action. During this time, flavor is also produced by oxidation of lipids and the breakdown of proteins. Third is drying. Now the beans have most of their gorgeous flavor at this point, but still a high moisture content, which can lead to mold. Drying is the key to preventing it. Also, the enemy of my friend is my enemy, and so I just want it to be known that I'm anti-mold. Like bad mold. Finally, it's time for conditioning. Now the really weird thing about conditioning is that you purposefully get all of the natural moisture out of your hair with shampoo, only to add it back with like new moisture. It's so strange. What? Hair episodes tomorrow. Yeah, okay. During conditioning, the dried beans are packed into a box for at least a month, but often a lot longer. This step enhances and also preserves the beans' flavor. They are finally ready to be shipped and used. Growing, pollinating, and processing vanilla this way requires incredible expertise, experience, and attention to detail. All of this makes vanilla the second most expensive spice after saffron. That and Mother Nature. When a cyclone ravaged Madagascar in 2017, it wiped out 30% of the vanilla crop and shot prices soaring up to almost $300 a pound. So the next time you hold a vanilla bean in your hands and then sacrifice it to a custard or ice cream, think about everything that went into its creation. And the same goes for pure vanilla extract, ground vanilla, vanilla powder, and vanilla paste, all of which contain at least some genuine vanilla. Okay, here's the craziest part. Everything we just talked about, from the beans to these products, make up just 1% of vanilla flavoring in the world. 1%! The fact of the matter is, there's no way to produce enough vanilla flavor to satisfy the world's hunger for it without synthesizing it. And that is why more than 15,000 tons of pure vanillin are manufactured each year. It's often created through a chemical process that starts with an organic compound called guaiacol. Guaiacol is derived from either petroleum or wood. So, does the synthesized stuff even taste like the real deal? Check out this experiment. We baked 2 batches of a simple icebox cookie flavored with vanilla. For one batch, we used pure vanilla extract, and for the other, we used imitation vanilla. My team kindly blindfolded me and handed me 2 cookies. They could have both been pure extract, both imitation, or one of each. They turned out to be really good. I mean, look, it's a great recipe. There's a link below the video. But the results are I found one to have more vanilla flavor than the other, and I actually preferred it. And the more vanilla-y one, imitation. So this was a recreation of a much bigger test that Hannah from Gearheads ran. And that's why I know I am not alone in my choosing of imitation over pure in this context. Here's the deal. During all of that processing we talked about, vanilla beans develop hundreds of aroma compounds, making the vanilla experience incredibly rich and nuanced. But as I mentioned, one such compound, vanillin, is the primary one, and it's what we recognize immediately as vanilla flavor. Pure vanilla extract captures the full complexity, while imitation vanilla is largely just a big hit of pure vanillin. Some brands do try to add complexity with other things like tea and cacao extract. When you heat either product, as we do during baking, we drive off lots of volatile aromas. That's why the kitchen smells great when you bake these cookies. But during that process, we largely lose the nuance of the real deal stuff. And that's why the big punch of vanillin in the imitation stuff often trumps pure extract. While you let that sink in, I'm gonna head to the kitchen. If you do get your hands on precious vanilla beans, it pays to know how to get the most out of them. Fresh, well-stored beans will be shiny, soft to the touch, and flexible. Beyond having better flavor and aroma, they're also much easier to split and scrape. To split a bean, I like to use a paring knife and drag it from end to end. Then I open up the bean and scrape away from me to extract as much of the seeds as I can. Check out this experiment. This is what it looks like with a dried out bean. And here's what it looks like with a fresh, flexible bean. Buying from a reputable source is your best bet for getting good beans. Now the pod itself holds a lot of flavor as well, so you want to get the most out of it. If you're making, say, my vanilla bean ice cream recipe, do like I do and blend the entire vanilla bean with the milk in the recipe. Then let it hang out in the mixture as you heat it to help extract flavor into the ice cream base. If the pods don't make sense in your recipe, you can still put them to use. Massaging the bean with sugar and then dropping it into a sealable sugar container is fun and it looks and smells good. But if you really want rich vanilla flavor in your sugar, it's better to blend the two together. Or you can make an entirely new product. Just dry the pods in a low oven until brittle and then grind them to a powder in a spice grinder. This powder has a rich, malty, floral flavor. It's not a direct sub for vanilla, but it adds lovely complexity to things like cookies and brownies. Vanilla works incredibly well with dairy and creamy blank slates where it can really shine. But it also adds so much as a stealthier ingredient. Take chocolate, for example. Most chocolate bars you buy have vanilla in the ingredient list. And our top recipes for things like brownies, chocolate cake, and chocolate cookies have a generous amount of vanilla extract. Combining vanilla with another incredibly aromatic and flavorful ingredient makes for super complex and delicious chocolate goods. But this pairing is anything but new. In fact, it's about as old as it gets in vanilla's history. Aztecs were combining the two hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. So the lesson here is simple. Don't skip on vanilla in your chocolate recipes. But today, I'm gonna show you one of the greatest vehicles for vanilla flavor, in my humble opinion, pastry cream. Okay, so not just pastry cream, though I would happily eat vanilla pastry cream by the spoonful. Today, it will be the filling for Choux au croquelant. Now this recipe by Cooks Illustrated Deputy Food Editor Andrea Geary features a cookie crunch outside, light as air puff, and rich whipped cream lightened pastry cream. They look incredibly impressive, but are totally achievable. It's a real Paul Hollywood handshake of a recipe, if you know what I mean. But we'll start with the pastry cream. Now we whisk flour, sugar, and salt in a medium bowl and then add egg yolks and milk and whisk until smooth. Then we pour in some simmering milk to temper the mixture. It then goes back into the pot with the rest of the milk and we cook while we whisk. We cook this for a total of about 10 minutes to ensure that the mixture gets nice and thick. That might seem like a long time, but it's important because our friendly egg yolk contains a special enzyme called amylase. Amylase is really good at breaking down starch into sugars. If it isn't fully deactivated by high heat, it could turn our beautifully thickened pastry cream into a liquidy mess as it sits in the fridge. Now we just remove it from the heat and whisk in butter and our very, very special guest today, vanilla. How much vanilla, you ask? 1 whole tablespoon.
Teaspoon.
No, tablespoon.
TSP?
No, TBSP. Like B as in beautiful bouncing baby boy, not just P as in pretty precious Princess Prudence. Look, this recipe has a ton of vanilla on purpose. What kind of vanilla, you ask? Well, because I won't be cooking this mixture any further, I'm opting for pure vanilla extract. I want that complex vanilla flavor, as opposed to just one massive hit of vanillin. But of course, it's cook's choice. Now, if you were feeling a little splashy and wanted to scrape the seeds from a pod and add those to the pastry cream as well, you would not be making a mistake. Now this goes into the fridge to fully set and firm up. Next, we'll put together the world's simplest cookie recipe. Just butter, sugar, flour, and salt. We'll roll it out, cut out rounds, and freeze the whole thing until we're ready to use them. And now for the pâte à choux. Pâte à choux is a really unique and versatile dough. Or is it a batter? Honestly, it lives somewhere in between. It holds its shape like dough, but is loose enough to pipe. To make it, you start by heating some liquid. In our case, we're using water, milk, and butter, and then adding flour to that. As you'd expect, as soon as the flour hits the hot liquid, it absorbs it rapidly. And that's actually the point. We are able to load this paste up with moisture that will then turn to steam during baking. We just heat this mixture to 175 degrees and then pop it in our food processor. Finally, we stream in beaten eggs until incorporated. Now, if you've ever made pâte à choux by hand on the stovetop, you know it's anything but easy to mix the paste and the eggs. The food processor makes super quick work of it. Now we just pipe rounds, top them with cute little cookie hats, and bake. This is the best part of the recipe, aside from eating them, of course. Check out the transformation as the choux pastry puffs and the craquelin melts to enrobe them before cracking and crisping. Now we lighten our vanilla-y pastry cream with whipped cream and pipe it right into our baked and dried puffs. Just look at these crackly beauties. Okay, it is time for a bite. These are so good. Can I give myself a handshake? The craquelin offers perfect crisp contrast to the super creamy filling. And that filling, one big glorious taste of vanilla. So complex, sweet, and delicious. That's why this is without a doubt how to eat vanilla. Thank you so much for watching. Now, big thanks to Hannah from Gearheads for her extensive vanilla research and testing. Now, if you aren't already watching Gearheads, you are missing out on opinionated, rigorous equipment reviews for everything from air fryers to chef's knives. There's a link below to check it out. Now, I'd love to hear about your experience with vanilla extract versus imitation. Do you use one and hate the other? Keep them both on hand? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you next time.